Okay. I'd like to begin by having us get further in alignment by letting you listen to this rain stick, which is very common in many indigenous populations from around the world. So just take a moment to breathe in and listen to that sound of rain. We might not hear it for a long time. So I just love that. There it goes. Okay, it's like an adult rattle. Just to get that centering. Okay. We're switching slides. So, the title of my talk today is Different Worldviews. Thank you, Morgan. It's all on? Great. Morgan, I don't know what I'd do without you. He has been such a great help. Now, I need a volunteer to come up real quickly to help with something. Mo, thank you. The reluctant hand of, I'll help you out, Lisa. Okay, so first of all, could you take off your glasses? Okay, because I'm going to have to blindfold you. Is that okay? Okay, you trust me, right? Okay, now this blindfold is really cool, speaking of different worldviews, because on one side in green it says in Russian, and also one part of in English, wake me up for meal. And then on the other side it says do not disturb. Which side would you like out? Wake me up for the meal. Okay, we'll be sure to wake you up. So go ahead and just put that on. Make sure it's comfortable. Okay, there we go. I like this. I had no idea they had opposite sides like that. Okay, come on over here. And now I'm going to just have you feel something, and you're going to try and describe what you feel, okay? It's kind of fragile, so don't do anything too sudden or extreme, like throw it at me. Okay, so go ahead and just feel it and just describe some things that you feel.
These feel like the little pouch with something square. I thought it was soap, but no, it wouldn't be in a square pouch.
Okay.
And then it's hooked on to, I guess there's sticks, not sure. And then there's something taped on here. This feels plastic. And this is, I don't know, another stick type thing or a flute. I don't know. It's short at the end, and they feel like they've been rubbed with something or smoothed out. This could be a knife, or could be a knife. I don't know. It feels like a bunch of things put together.
Very good. Let's give Mo a hand. Take off your blindfold now. I'll take that before you poke my eye out.
Okay.
Okay, so there's no way you could have guessed what this was because it was a culmination of many things. So what does this have to do with different worldviews? We got,
Feel the feathers, that's good.
oh yeah. So we have here a little pouch, you were correct in, and it has a miniature little book of the Quran right here. And then we have a laughing Buddha, kind of plastic. And then we have a spear, kind of religious symbol, also from the island of Borneo. And then we have a talking stick from Native Americans right here. So it is a culmination. Thank you. You can sit down now. Mo's always a great help. So sometimes, without being exposed to different things, we have no idea what things are. We don't know what to do with it, what to think about it. And so we try and make sense without much information at all. And then we go ahead and we make assumptions and base beliefs with a really limited framework, a limited vision even. Pema Chodron says, "The truth you believe and cling to makes you unavailable to hear anything new." Sometimes we are so full of past beliefs that there's no room for possibilities. Have you ever tried to convince someone of something that they already had their mind made up about, and it was like hitting a brick wall every time? So this morning, I just want to invite you to maybe let go of some past assumptions about things and be open to some new perspectives. Maybe they pushed your buttons in the past. But begin to start seeing things with an open mind, with perhaps a blindfold off. I believe if we can be exposed to different ideas and experiences, we can truly expand our horizon, our field of knowledge. We are better people after becoming aware of new inventions, ideas, and practices. Think of the Renaissance back hundreds of years ago and what that did for the whole, the Dark Ages. We came out of the plagues of the 14th and 15th century, and we were cloaked in fear and contraction. But this led to a contrast where we wanted expansion and life. There was a rebirth with art, education, music, and knowledge. We know the names Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and William Shakespeare. They colored our world with sculpting and painting and the spoken word. The German inventor Gutenberg shared many ideas through his invention of the printing press. And then we also had the inventor of Galileo, who shared planets with his telescope. In modern day times, we still have a few inventions that you may or may not know where the country that invented those came from. So I'm going to have you kind of guess a couple of these today. Let's begin with Velcro. Any ideas on where Velcro was invented? Mo, again.
I don't know the year, but I know that it was
Uh-huh.
watch
Yes. It was from the country of Switzerland, though. So, I don't know the guy's name either. We also have buttons that were given to us by, any ideas? No? Pakistan is actually being credited with that. We have the tranquilizer gun from New Zealand. We have eyeglasses from Italy, toilet paper. Who would have wondered where that? China gave us toilet paper. We also have a kerosene lamp from Poland, electric motor from Hungary. We have a speedometer from Croatia. And interesting, we have speed enforcement from, not Croatia, you'd think that they would go hand in hand there, but the Netherlands. Corn syrup. Any ideas about corn syrup? Japan, I don't know. He probably made it there too, though. And then USB flash drives from Israel. Where would we be without our USB flash drives? Bottom line is, we are smarter together. Sharing ideas expands our world and consciousness for what is possible. We literally don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like it or not, we are all connected and influenced by what occurs around the world. And we've already seen this with climate, the environment, plagues, and wars. Where there is a crisis in one part of the world, refugees flee. People seek better conditions when their lives are challenged. We've had huge migrations of the past where people were strained in some areas, but then they also came and contributed a great deal in other regions because of this intercultural exchange. How many of you, out of curiosity, have traced back your immigrant past and found that maybe your family fled some challenging condition before? Maybe you heard from generations passed down over time. Okay, we have a couple, yeah. And maybe some of you yeah, you will find those stories over time of how you came to be in this country. And think of the gifts that your ancestors brought as well. My in-laws left what was used to be Czechoslovakia when their bakery burnt down. And they came to this country in 1907 with the insurance money that they got from the bakery burning. And they went through Ellis Island in 1907. And I'm sure they brought the gift of baked bread and cakes, who knows. As a teacher, I've loved teaching English language learners. Most come with a truly open mind, wanting to just absorb the culture and the language and trying hard to adjust to the customs and other things that are thrown at them. While some come to improve their lives, others flee from a part of the world that no longer works for them. Many of my students work so incredibly hard, in part because they don't want to disappoint their parents who struggled and brought them here under challenging conditions. I began traveling over 15 years ago as an American, but I came back as a global citizen. Now, I'm proud to be an American, but I'm also proud to be part of a world that has so many unique, interesting cultures. America is truly a culmination of unique ideas and practices. We are great because we are diverse. Ernest Holmes says, "Compassion and caring are the ties that bind us together in mutual understanding and in the unified attempt to uncover the divinity in each other. Compassion is the gentlest of all human virtues, for it is the outpouring of the divine givingness through all." That's from his Practical Wisdom writings. Now think about this. Humanity is always spiraling upwards, despite conditions that are calling for our help or a new way of responding. If we pull together with compassion and try seeing that divine in all people, then we can begin to practice this out-of-the-box thinking. And maybe we can come up with solutions that are more readily found together instead of just trying to forage out on our own and find them. On this body of earth, we recognize that there are wounds that need healing. Just like though we wouldn't chop off our leg because we have a skinned knee, we try and heal that injured spot. We know that blood rushes into that area, that injured area, to help heal and balance it out. Once resources are put in an area that's harmed, we know that an alignment can come back. During the Holocaust, many countries in the world united together to stop an infection of hate. During the 1980s, many of you probably remember we had a campaign called "We Are the World" in response to the famines in Africa. We've boycotted countries that we tried to successfully change their segregation policies or acts of genocide that were occurring. After the fire in Paradise, people from all over the world came together to help support people right here at home. Many of you sitting here were part of that. Once we feel empathy towards others, we can more readily understand them. That's saying that if we can walk a mile in another's shoes, we're less likely to judge them or cast dirt upon them. The golden rule is a universal one. When we see someone in need, we reach out and try and help. We try and do those things to others that we would like to be treated, how we would like to be treated, whether we're Baha'i, Buddhist, Muslim, Christian, religious scientist. What are some basic needs that we all have as humans? Just call out a few. Food, shelter, water. I was just going to say, to be loved, to love and be loved are perhaps one of our greatest needs that we have. Now, we don't have to agree with everything that we see going on in the world. In fact, I strongly react when I hear about things like human trafficking. But that, of course, happens everywhere around the world. When we see things that we don't agree with, we work towards laws or try and put tools in place for changing them. The number of child brides have been reduced from people realizing that their daughters can also benefit the family by being educated instead of just sold off or killed. Rainforest can produce more money with ecotourism instead of being ripped out for wood or farming. Ecotourism has helped reduce poaching animals as the locals realize there is value in having wild open spaces. People will pay to come and see these animals roaming freely instead of trophies on a wall. New Zealand. They have a belief in a Maori spiritual guardian called Kaitiaki. I hope I pronounced that correctly. They believe this guardian watches over and protects the land, sea, and sky. Our own Native Americans have similar views about the Great Spirit who created this beautiful planet. Both cultures point out that we are truly caretakers here. If we can treat the earth and people with respect, we can truly put this golden rule into practice. Embodying this fully, we can recognize all age groups as well. In fact, in Greek, they don't have old man is not considered a bad word. I'm kind of hoping that old lady is also not considered a bad word. They didn't say that. There's no stigma to old age. Rather, it is honored and celebrated. In Korea, age is also revered, and the elderly are sought out for advice and wisdom. In India, they touch the feet of the elders as a sign of respect and honor. Kindness has been shown to me numerous times in my life, as people often detect that I have a need and then rush in to help. Maybe because they think I'm getting older, which is not a bad thing. So I embrace that now. A while back, my son was hitchhiking in the country of Serbia, a place that he was told was safe and that it was legal to do so there. So he was a little confused when a policeman came up to him right at the beginning of his hitchhiking quest and asked him what he was doing. My son told him that he was traveling around Eastern European countries to just get to know the people and culture a bit more. I have no idea where he gets that from. Well, the policeman then went back and just sat in his car and watched my son, Chris. Chris thought maybe this was a setup and that he would get in trouble once he finally got a ride. Well, he just brushed the fear aside and waited, and finally a car pulled over to pick him up. And right before Chris got in, the policeman got out, walked right over to my son, took his hand, but instead of putting on handcuffs, he put what was equivalent to about $20 into his hand and said this would help him on his journey, and he wished him well. Simple acts of kindness. In Japan, they have a practice called senbetsu, where friends and family give financial gifts to one who is going on a journey. In Italy, they have something called caffè sospeso, or suspended coffee. Here, a cup of coffee is paid for anonymously and in advance. I want you just to think for a moment about some act of kindness that you've either been given or received. Maybe you helped somebody with a broken down car, or somebody paid for you on a toll booth. Think how that exchange made you feel. Empowerment and conscious evolution are also sub-themes of this month for from the CSLs. And so I want to mention that as well. There is that old saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you feed him for life. So if we can encourage and empower people to take responsibility for their lives, or empower people with a new ability to respond, we can easily respond with our past beliefs and judgments, or we can begin to embrace some new teachings and tools that we get from things like science of mind. One is we stand for something and against nothing. It might be a little confusing to hear that, but think about it. This is the law of attraction. It's not just good philosophy. It's the physics behind the way the universe works. You can disagree with gravity, think it's not a good idea, really despise it at times, but every time you fall, you're reminded of its reality. The spiritual practices of focusing on what we want, this is where the power lies. This brings it all together because every person in the world has the ability to think, create, and respond. We all have access to this universal intelligence, this God essence that thinks through us. This is conscious evolution. However, it is a bit more difficult to do this if we're hungry, we don't have shelter, and our basic needs are not being met. There are some exceptions to this, and I want to share one with you now. Who has seen the movie The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind? Anybody? Oh, good. So some of you might know that it's about a young man, a young teen, who lived it's based on a true story, and this young boy, William Kamkwamba, lived with his family in a village in Malawi. Now, back in 2002, they were facing famine and drought in a very severe way. The teen, William, was even kicked out of school because his family couldn't afford tuition. Things seemed like they were just spiraling downward. Well, William was not going to just sit back and watch his loved ones die. He had a plan. He snuck into the library with the help of his teacher and educated himself. He borrowed, reluctantly at first, his father gave him his bike, and he was able to create a wind turbine which generated enough power to pump water from the well and light up parts of his village. They were able to grow crops again. His ability to respond increased with his desire. Conscious evolution. Necessity is the mother of invention, or perhaps the universe finds new ways to express through us, despite the challenges, or maybe inspired by those challenges around us. I want you just to think for a moment of some event that was very challenging in your life, but maybe it gave you a new way of thinking, and it gave you a new resolve or a new way of creating something in response. Here's a light little example, but I must have been around 6 or 7, and I went to visit my grandma, but I forgot my shoes. It was a very hot summer day. So my grandmother made me a pair of watermelon rind shoes. She just cut them out to the shape of my feet and then rubber banded them onto my feet. And these sweet, sticky soles helped me get all the way down to the swimming hole. Once basic needs are met, we can begin to encourage self-determination and self-responsibility. I never forgot my sandals again. We live in a global community and can have many more resources and ideas when we share them and work towards some common good. I'd like to market those watermelon rind sandals, by the way. Good invention. When a minority of people come together with focused thought, it is far more powerful than the scattered vibration and chaos of the majority. I used to teach at a little Buddhist school in Thailand, and every Friday they had an assembly where the kindergartners through 6th grade would come together to meditate. And I loved watching the kindergartners struggle to sit with their eyes closed for those 15 minutes. They kind of represented that chaos and confusion, but I appreciated their attempt. For the most part, all countries want similar things. We all want health and happiness for our friends and families, right? Spirituality in action calls us to bring spiritual practices into small, ordinary events in everyday life. We're not here just to be spiritual on Sundays when we go to churches or centers, just so that we're all clear on that today, okay? We can help others through those simple acts of kindness that you thought of earlier. One of those acts or practices is visualizing. It transforms the quality of our life by manifesting our thoughts into things. We are energy-filled, vibrational beings. We cannot help but influence one another, just being in our presences. If we begin to respond in a loving, respectful way, we will raise the vibration of the world. Because when we resonate together, shift happens. Worldviews are also punctuated through language. Words are powerful because they symbolize what a culture places its importance on. I mentioned that earlier with the words for old age and whatnot. I was in a country where they didn't have a word for feelings. What do they talk about every day? I'm sure a lot of people would have wanted to move there. So one thing I found in common, one phrase across many different countries, was that encouraging us not to worry. Irie in Jamaican, Ejilok in Ibada in Marshallese, Hakuna Matata in Lion King or Swahili. They all mean, don't worry, no problem. Because when we stop worrying, we free up that mental space to begin practicing things like saying I love you. In French, they say je t'aime. The Iranians say mano shegatan. The Hebrew word for peace is shalom. In Arabic, it's salam alaikum. We greet each other with kisses, handshakes, hugs, or simply a bow and a smile. I found out quickly that as a woman, I should not run up and hug a Buddhist monk or a Muslim man. Little cultural things. The South Africans have a term called Ubuntu, and it means I am what I am because of who we all are. Let's just say that together. Ubuntu. I love that phrase. Now, another thing all cultures have in common is they like to celebrate. I know we do. Maybe it's the water festival in Thailand called Songkran. They also throw colored water on each other as well. And then we also have fireworks displays. We're getting ready for our big 4th of July celebration soon. That seems to be international. And then we come together with parades to mark good things and challenges, but to accentuate what we are as a community. Quantum physics and science of mind have showed us that what we focus on and give our attention to is what we get more of. So let's begin to focus on what we have in common, what we love about life, and maybe where we envision being in another 10 years or so. Virtual reality might sound like something of science fiction, but it has some power. I kind of use virtual reality every morning before I even get out of bed. I pre-pave my day by envisioning what I want to occur. If we can start to visualize a virtual reality where people get along, they come together to find solutions, not just challenges. If we can truly picture this, then it will manifest, for this is the law. We can look at the good that is already occurring and add to it. There is a field of pure potentiality around us, just like she's showing. And it's just waiting for us to recognize and give our attention to that image that we desire. We already have so much beauty and opportunity available to us on a daily basis. Visualizing transforms the quality of living. So let's just take a moment. I'd like you to just close your eyes, if you will. And I'd just like you to see in your mind's eye a world where people are playing and creating together, coming together in laughter and co-creation despite whatever cultures they're from. When you get a sense of that, just take a breath in and then open your eyes again. Wayne Dyer reminds us that when we live on a round planet, there's no choosing sides. The Marshallese have a practice that when food and supplies are running low, that is when we pitch in. We help where it is needed. And I want to add to that, when moods are low, here in our own country, we can begin by uplifting the mood, sharing the energy, sharing our positive thoughts and beliefs, which are built into this teaching. Now, the Russians have a practice that of welcoming newcomers by sharing bread and salt, which symbolizes prosperity and abundance. And our Russians from the Tin Roof Bakery have made this just for us today. So I will be standing by the door on the way into Loftus Hall, and I hope each one of you will come by as you go in to support the Teens Taco Bar. Just take a little bread and pinch it in salt, or not, but just to recognize that custom today. So whether or not we begin with blindness or blindfolds, lack of knowledge or just plain confusion, if we have a desire to be open and curious and become clear about things, we can receive answers and begin to understand each other a bit more. We don't have to know everything and have it all figured out, which is really good because I always struggle with that. But if we are open to trying on a new perspective, we can transform lives, beginning with our own. Once worldviews are shared or just even acknowledged, we can begin to build that bridge of commonality. We can then begin to co-create that world that works for everyone. Namaste.